gives me great pleasure to welcome you once again. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to our partners, Backbase, Fiorano, NetGuardians, and Kia. You will hear from their thoughts through the day. And without too much ado, I'm going to call on Ram to conduct the first panel for the day. Ram?
Thank you, Nikhil. We have the first panel for the day, and the topic is on emerging trends in digital banking. I guess a lot of what we have to say has been spoken by Nikhil, by Chetan. So I guess we're going to actually build on top of a lot of data that Chetan had joined. So let me quickly introduce my fellow panelists. And if you can put your hands together to welcome the CEO for Al Maryah Community Bank, Mr. Mohammed Khayata. Thank you. My second panelist is the Group Chief Information Officer for First Abu Dhabi Bank FAB, Mr. Srinivasan Sampath. Our next panelist today is the Chief Commercial Officer for Vahie Bank, Prateek Vahie. Hi, Prateek. And my next panelist is Ali Nanji, the Regional Director for CEEMA at Backbase. Ali. Thank you. It's a good way to start the day. So before we actually jump into the discussion, I have to make one disclaimer here. We have in this panel, which I think is a matter of pride for us, we actually have in this panel two pure play digital banks. We have somebody who's in the forefront of digital bank, globally, that is actually being driven by someone like FAB. And we have somebody who's actually been at the back of every single digital banking initiative. So we probably have the panel which has the best insights to share. Is it audible enough behind? Yeah. So with that, I'm going to actually start with you, Mohammed. I think set the tone. Should I start with digitization or disruption, or both mean the same?
Well, yes. We can discuss everything. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today and amongst the professional panelists in digital banking. Thanks to Chetan. Chetan he set the stage for a very challenging thoughts to discuss, to give some rich ideas and updates on what we're doing. So yes, Ram, we're very happy to be here with you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mohammed. So I think firstly, that the number he threw there saying 80% people are ready for having digital only banking in itself talks a lot about, and 90% of the residents here actually prefer to have a digital banking. Talks a lot about how digital banking is being embraced, and it's actually making a change in people's lives, right? From a point of time, I remember maybe when we were when we started our career, we used to go to the bank, to a branch to actually fill some forms to draw our money, to where we are, where people say they would like to look at their phone 10 times a day to just experience the new UX. I think we've come a long way. But that's past. And if I have to ask you, how does the next 3 years going to look like in the UAE, particularly in digital banking? What would you have to say?
So next year, that's interesting. I'll start from what we are doing, where we're ending with. So in Maryah Bank now, we are working to license the first regulated stablecoin. The name is going to be AE Coin, and the purpose of this coin is to capture on the potential of blockchain as a technology. So where we see these two will play important role. So first, in cross-border transactions, so we see SWIFT is going to be sidelined a bit. The second is for cross-border settlement. Third, the off-ramp, on-ramp between crypto assets and fiat dirham. So that on its own couldn't have happened without the regulator. So as you know, the regulator is taking the lead. UAE Central Bank has been playing a significant role in empowering and enabling banks to move forward. We all know about the MPSS. We've been trying to work a lot on AI, artificial intelligence, and we have been searching for solutions where the computer or AI agent can answer the customer in order to capture on this opportunity. Until now, we believe AI needs to be more developed. There's a lot of time, a lot of ideas. Data science is not something easy. People still, even though they use the mobile, thanks to Steve Jobs, to change our perspective from a hardware Nokia to a software-based. So these applications work very well. They're close to everyone's heart. People see their mobiles more than they see their families. So that on its own witnesses how people interact with their banking needs. I think hyper-personalization will play an important role. And the game changer will be for those banks who will segment and provide banking services on community basis. When I say community, maybe the fisheries, looking at the kids. So community-based banking with AI on application and mobiles, I think this is what's going to lead and what will be the trend in the coming 3 years.
Fascinating. So if I understand you right, Mohammed, I think you are laying a lot of emphasis that it is not just about being digital, but it's actually more about being able to determine what your customer needs, so you actually are hyper-personalized, have a clear view on your segments, determine what the needs are, make sure that your AI is actually being put to good use to determine the needs and then service them accordingly. And your comment about the regulator is not gone unnoticed. I think it clearly is a very important fillip to what's happening in the industry, right? Thank you for those comments. But I'm going to take this discussion from a customer focus, which is outward focus, to something which is more inward, Sampath. It's one thing to say that we are going through a lot of, digital banking revolution, as they say, and there is a lot of stuff that is actually happening for the end customer, for the man on the street to actually experience as a bank, right? But from behind the scenes, if one was to make a comment on what change is happening in the technology world, if somebody who's actually looking at the helm of affairs of a bank as large as FAB, as they say, it's like the duck is sailing smooth on top of the water, but there's a lot of paddling happening inside, right? So what would you like to share with us as the mega trends, if I may say, in technology? And how do you think, or how do you see that shaping the future of digital banking, not just in the UAE, but in the GCC itself?
Morning, everyone, and happy to be part of this panel. Ram always strategically puts me between two digital banks all the time. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Ram. I think, internally there is quite a bit of transformation that's going through from a technology perspective over the past couple of years. There are several areas that we are focusing on in order to be looking at customer and how do we deliver a different experience from a customer journey and customer experience. One of the focus areas, of course, is on the architecture, technology architecture. So we're doing quite a bit over the past 2 years in terms of refreshing the architecture, decoupling the architecture from the legacy platforms, building a lot of modernized technology capabilities in order to, create microservices, APIs, moving into cloud in a big way in terms of scalability, flexibility, and also leverage some of the services which we can, use from the cloud instead of trying to develop in-house or how do we scale up and make it accelerate the way in which we deliver services. So there are quite a bit of a breadth of changes that's being done from a technology landscape perspective. As you know, we are a result of the merger between two banks, which happened 5-6 years back. So there's quite a bit of legacy technology and architecture that we have carried over, and we have not invested a couple of years or 2 to 3 years after the integration process, because business have been waiting almost for more than 3 years because of the integration process. As you know, during integration, almost everything is at a freeze. So there are quite a bit of business-related product, launches needs to be done in the next couple of years. But now, in the past 24 months, we have completely refreshed a lot on technology, and we have a almost 5-year journey on what we want to do. As Chetan talked about, that most of the digital banks have MVP that is getting released on a monthly basis. I mean, you can see both M-Bank and Vio almost on a daily basis release some new features, some partnerships, some co-brand, and so many things which comes on a daily basis. But even from a digital offering from a bank like FAB, we do quite a bit on optimizing our journeys, making it very simple for customers to basically easy navigation, and we keep KPIs in terms of like legacy, how many clicks that the customer can do before he completes a service. So that's, I think, most of the people are doing. But from an internal perspective, there are a lot of process changes, because most of the time we have seen in a digital STP journey, a lot of focus is on customer experience, and all the garbage is being dumped on the back, right? So the back office is the team which basically suffers a lot, and also from a customer servicing perspective. So we do quite a bit of re-engineering from the back office processes to make sure that a lot of things in a happy path is STP, so that there is no manual intervention from an end life cycle of transaction. And I'm happy to share that today more than 95% of our payment transactions are STP. So there is very little manual intervention from an payment, both from corporate and retail channels perspective. So these are all the result and outcome of a lot of architectural changes that we have done internally, because for such a large bank with such large infrastructure and many touch points, it's very important to make sure that all the touch points works in coherence, because any failure in anything will result in a customer experience or payment being lost, or a lot of challenge to the customer. So internally, I think we have been re-engineering quite a lot from architecture, policy, process, bringing in new skills from a talent perspective. Because when we start opening up the architecture, when we start decoupling your services, it's important that the design element is taken care properly, because you are creating something for the future. So which means that you need to inherit good talent and skill who will help us to shape up this whole thing. As I said, it's a sort of a 5-year journey, but I think we are in the right track in terms of what we are doing.
Very interesting, Sampath. I mean, if I understood you right, at the foundation of all of this is having the right architecture. And you called out a few elements about the architecture being particularly on microservices and being cloud enabled. But you actually emphasized on 2 important points, which I'm probably going to take the question further, and I'll come back to you also, Sampath. But the 2 points that stood out for me was that it's not just about making the changes for the end customer to experience what he or she experiences. Getting the processes right internally and having them enabled for the right experience becomes very critical. And you also talked about skills that need to be in place to actually address this, right? So probably I'll come back to you on that at a later stage. But I'm going to just take this discussion to Prateek. We talked about, with Mohammed, we actually talked about what's happening from a strategic overall context, and with Sampath, we talked about technology. But I'm going to take another topic which is critical for today's discussion, and that is innovation, Prateek. Every time we talk about innovation, right? it's not necessarily, and this is my submission, and I would like you to confirm. Innovation is not just about innovation in the product that you're offering. Innovation is about ways in which you are, providing that experience to the customer, ways in which you're acquiring that customer. It could be about driving, collaborations with fintechs that makes the innovation more sustainable. So could you probably give us some views on, from what you have seen and experienced, how is that critical in this emerging trend of digital banking, the pivotal, operating word called innovation in the larger scheme of things?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. It almost feels like deja vu from last year, with Sampath on the right and Ali and Bhanu sitting on the table in front. But great to be here again. So thank you for this opportunity. I think you're absolutely right. I think innovation is absolutely critical for any organization to succeed. Right? Not only digital banks. I think it's across the board. So, but to your point, yes. I think innovation exists across all the various parameters. If I were to start with, I think Chetan kind of touched upon a lot of the key metrics that banks need to focus on, and I think we're pretty much hitting all those blocks. To start with, say for onboarding, right? We've really at VO we've truly emphasized on innovating on the onboarding experience, and that has really been our USP in terms of customer acquisition. We've ensured that the journeys are very intuitive. We've tried to leverage data and APIs to ensure that we're able to access information seamlessly to complete those journeys, and ensure that the onboarding experience is very differentiated from a traditional bank, and that's been very key. We've innovated on analytics. We've got spend analytics inside the app to give customer insights on where they spend, on what categories they're spending on. So that's another kind of innovation in terms of engaging with our customers. We've done innovation on cybersecurity, right? You don't really see that, but across the board we have a strong innovative mindset to ensure on the fraud side of analytics we do a good job over there. On the entire customer onboarding, accessing the app, all the security that is required to ensure that there's an element of trust that gets built. So there's a strong innovative bent of mind over there. And then also on the whole collaboration front, right? We've taken a very open API approach that also was touched upon earlier. We're collaborating with the likes of Stripe, for example, where we're trying to innovate on payment acceptance. Right, so customers can seamlessly subscribe to Stripe and get payments on their website or links as such. We've got collaborations with Magnati, with UTAP in a similar way. We've also collaborated with the likes of Fiscal, Zoho, Wafik, where we've opened up and they can link VO accounts now to their accounting softwares. For seamless transaction transfers that can also enable payments, right? So there's auto payment APIs that have been created. So yeah, I think there's innovation is absolutely critical, and we use it across all, right? From onboarding, customer maintenance, cybersecurity, and then how to grow our entire platform.
Prateek, if you can throw some light about this whole area of fintech collaboration and the whole, I mean, you did talk about a few names, right? Magnati and Zoho and Stripe. And so what goes in the process of collaboration with fintechs to drive innovation? Is it bottom up? I mean, is it because you have a fintech collaboration, you end up offering something, or is there a need that you identify that helps you then go back and figure the fintechs? What goes into this whole fintech collaboration ecosystem?
No, I think there's a clear need. I think a lot of the initiatives that we've done are not, we're not reinventing anything. They all exist. They don't exist in this country, but they exist in the world today. And we kind of identified opportunities that have the largest impact to a customer. So for the SMEs especially, setting up, and now with all corporate tax coming into play, it's become super critical for them to kind of have that seamless, accounting opportunity between their accounting softwares and banking solutions. So there was a clear opportunity on that. And then because the way we've built from a tech stack point of view, a very agile open APIs, we're able to collaborate with all the accounting software players in this market to enable that for our customers.
So basically, it's an existing need that it's not necessary that you are creating a new need. It's an existing need that you obviously are addressing with what has worked elsewhere in the world, but making sure it's brought in here. Thanks, Prateek. That's very insightful. But that brings me to another important topic, which I'm going to take to Ali, right? At the core of everything that Prateek talked about is actually how well are you integrating at the back end, right? And Sampath made a comment that people throw things to the back and you got to figure how things get eventually worked. And it's all about making sure that the ultimate seamless customer experience that is offered to the customer is when you have a very effective, seamless, well-defined integration at the back end, right? How has it been? I mean, what's been your take on how that is effectively done? What is it that banks tend to either focus on or miss out on that you would like to actually throw some light on, Ali?
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here again. Again, feels like a bit of a deja vu, but happy to be here. From my perspective, I think the biggest, there are two prongs to this, right? I think the first prong is, it's clear from all the banks that are with me here today that platform is the way to go, right? And gone are the days where you could custom build things from bottom up because of the complexity that it arises, whether you're an incumbent bank looking to reframe your internal or back office processes, or you're a digital bank because you want to have the nimbleness to be able to attack the market quicker. In order for that to happen, and the collaboration model that's in place, we as fintechs are no different than many of the other banks, and I'll speak on the behalf of Backbase here. So Backbase, as you know, is an engagement banking layer, but we do not do core banking. We do not do a middle layer. We do not do directly certain downstream systems like payments or fraud or identity, so on and so forth. So what do? We collaborate. We integrate through an open API system to be able to offer solutions out of the box, right? And to be able to offer pre-integrated packages, depending on the choices of the gentleman to my right or any other customer that we may be speaking to, in order to deliver that piece of the puzzle. But what I find is very interesting is, it's a little bit different when you look at it from a digital bank perspective. Why? Because a digital bank is just one channel, right? A incumbent bank is multi-channel. And when you look at that multi-channel, the seamlessness of experience is still something that I believe is a little bit behind in the UAE today. And I can take it from a personal example, right? If I do something online or I talk to an agent or whatever, chances are the branch has no idea, even if I am sitting in the branch. Vice versa, if you look at, for example, real-time support, right? After a certain point, it's still not there, right? And I don't know about many of you, but I am not a fan of talking to an IVR bot and pressing 1 and 2 and then telling them and repeating the same instructions over and over again in order to ultimately then say, hey, let me speak to an agent because this bot is not getting it, right? So I think when it comes to offering that overarching seamless customer experience, where when you're looking at the incumbent bank, I think one of the things that needs to be really put into consideration is, from the back office, are those processes made in a way that collaboration mechanism is there? And then on the channel side, how have you integrated so that both the employee as well as the customer have the same level of quote-unquote seamlessness, right? Because it doesn't matter if you give the customer all the seamlessness on the planet, but if your employees in the back end are struggling, it's not going to work. The second piece of the puzzle is when you look at the digital banks, I think they are obviously in a more of an advantageous position, A, because they have lesser number of channels to deal with and lesser complexity, but also because they have the higher level of agility to offer those seamless experiences, right? And that's where I think the lifestyle banking piece really comes into the puzzle. So I know Chetan already mentioned that, digital banks, multiple people are, opening these banking apps over and over again, but the reason why they're doing that is ultimately because their lifestyle components are being addressed in one app or through connectivity with multiple other applications, right? You take it as an example, family banking, right? Family banking is a big topic within this region. Everyone wants to, get their families and children in particular to be more financially literate, and I don't blame them. You're now sitting in an environment where so many mass affluents have entered into this country that it seems like every other person has a Ferrari. So you're like, okay, how am I going to teach my kids those relatively important concepts of how to manage money? And those pieces are coming directly from the bank. I think Vio's done a very successful job in that. My wife uses Vio, right, very heavily because of the savings plan and those capabilities.
Transferred the ownership to your wife's account. Yeah, what about yours?
I'm a bit all over the place, but it's easier to blame the wife sometimes. But I think the other piece of the puzzle is then also when you talk about that support and security piece of the puzzle, right? And I think that's where everyone knows it's important. But you also look at, as we go into more of a digital kind of layer, if those integrations and those connectivities are not seamless, somebody is going to take advantage, right? And we've seen that happen over and over again. So in short, to answer your question, it is more about having those seamless API connectivities at a platform level to be able to then offer different tailor-made packages. And that will then allow you to reduce the complexity in the back office, to be able to support in the re-architecturing piece that Sampath was talking about, and to be able to offer a more seamless integrated customer experience that can not only be offered out of the box, but also then tailored according to the bank's various needs and wants.
Platformification is your mantra. I'm actually going to go into a second round with all the panelists with the same question. But before I did that, I promise I'll go back to you, Sampath, and I want you to elaborate a little more, if you don't mind, on how the change that we are all witnessing today is actually manifesting in the need for different skills that need to be in place in a bank. So what has been your experience in the profile, in the kind of skills and the kind of skills in the futuristic sense that a bank needs to be investing in? And then I'll go into the next set of questions, please.
I think one of the important challenges all of us face is to get the right talent and skill and retain them, within the organization for continuity. It took some time for us to, bring in the right talent. I think as we spoke about architecture, we created a very strong architecture layer of technical skills plus the person who can understand business, really think about what is going to be for the future. So that is the first, I think, important layer that we created. We created architect across different layers of business so that, as I said, whatever we are looking at now, what we are designing now should be fit for the future. And the way we approached it basically is that first, we understood what are all the business capabilities, right? So started from there. So once we identifying all the business capabilities, then we mapped it to our current technology blueprint, what we have now, right? And accordingly, we build a roadmap that will take us to the next 5 years. So as part of this roadmap, what we identified is this is co-creation with the business so that there is an, acceptance, there is a, journey which we travel together. And then accordingly, we identify the technology elements, components, which needs to be upgraded, replaced, retained, or new capabilities that we need to bring in. And when we identify this full, blueprint across for the next 5 years, this we did for across every business line, then we know what are the capabilities and talent that we need to bring in. For example, if we need to modernize the entire middleware layer, move from a traditional point-to-point interface to microservices-based, API-based, what are the skills that we need to bring in? Then we want to decouple the architecture and make it component-based and composable architecture. Where are the areas that we need to bring in? So once we identify, we know what sort of roles, what sort of talent. So some of them were achieved through upskilling existing teams in terms of a lot of trainings, especially when you spoke about cloud. So before embarking into cloud, we created a very strong cloud COE. So who is going to completely manage the entire, cloud journey, setting up architecture, security. Prateek also talked about cyber security, which is one of the key aspects. So like that, we identified different areas, and wherever we could upskill people, we upskilled all those internal team and also brought in new skills. So it's a combination of the two, so they complement each other to build what is there for the future. And as this is continuing now. One of the things I think we talked about also the fintech partnerships. So we are also a big way looking at how fintechs can help us to accelerate what we are doing. And a lot of areas which we have seen benefit in terms of delivering a particular service almost 50% time less than what traditionally you would like to do, including the cost. So what's the talent and resources that is required if we need to go into that journey of opening up and then able to interact with, because once you get multiple large number of fintechs, you need to also a governance process to manage them. So what sort of talent required from a vendor management perspective, because we need a strong vendor management team once you start working with smaller vendors. So various aspects which we have looked at, and that's how we are building the skill now and for the future.
Fascinating. Building capabilities, upskilling, building fintech partnerships, and cloud seeding. Okay. If I may go into my second round of questions, and I'll start with you, Mohammed, and it's the same question I have for all the panelists. Look, I mean, as a country and as an industry, we are now changing gears, and there is very evidently the uptake is very high, and as you can see in the brochure, I mean, the number of banking apps has grown up 7x in the last 7 years, and we clearly are moving at a speed that we probably have not in the last 5-7 years. So if you were to pick one or two most important areas that a bank should focus on, what would your pick be?
If you look at the numbers of total assets in banking, UAE versus Saudi Arabia, we were half of Saudi Arabia 7-8 years ago. We are the total banking assets. UAE is about 800 billion. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is about 820. The question is, to answer you from my perspective, is what made UAE catch up? If you look at it from a strategic point of view, I think the agility, the openness, the leadership who is having a very neutral position politically, so that what makes this country unique in terms of being an inviting country to the UAE. I think the first priority that banks should do is to get aligned with the priorities of the central bank, of the leadership. So anything we see and we hear about, whether it's open banking, billionaires coming to the country, I think that is important. Banks should really look into the needs. We know the challenges without speaking them we have in the country. I think that is one strategic area. The second is the lower unserved. We have a lot of unserved market segment in the country. So I'm talking about the leadership, and I'm talking about the bottom of I don't know what you want to call them, the blue collar. There is a lot of need to service that sector. Banks, unfortunately, I worked in big banks, we always focus on income per capita, product mix, customer profitability. We don't look at serving the community. We don't look at giving it back to the community. I think there is an obligation on banks to really do something for the community, do something for the lower segment, look at ways not only to give credit cards to really build your asset side to make bottom lines. I think there should be a sustainable approach of doing banking services based on the community aspect, and then use technology to focus and address those priorities. So top leadership, lower segment in the economy, and give it back. Banks should give back something to the economy.
Fascinating. It's more than just about segmentation. I mean, clearly knowing whom you're serving is one, but having a point of view on building what would be called as community banking and building a community around you in the way you are actually, it's not just about banking, but actually being a lifestyle in itself is where you're going with, and I completely agree. I mean, many don't know, Wells Fargo, for example, is one of the largest community banks in the world. And you don't have to be a small bank to be a community bank. I mean, the point is, you could be a very large bank and still be a very effective, successful community bank. Totally agree with you, Mohammed. Sampath, what would your pick be on the 2 or 3 most critical focus areas that a bank should be zooming into as the industry is changing gears?
I think one of the area which will be the focus in the next 2-3 years with the generative AI. A lot of the way in which we do internally and externally servicing the customers or what we do is going to generative AI will play a big role. So that's where we are now in the process of laying the foundation, putting the governance and framework in terms of what sort of governance framework that we need internally to establish, so that we're in the piloting some use cases as we speak now. But I think the next couple of years that will play a large role in the way that we do business in terms of servicing the customers or internally from process perspective. And second, I think in order to be successful in the generative AI journey, I think your data is a key aspect. So how do we make sure that we have the proper data? So data analytics in terms of AI, machine learning, all of them will also be a key focus area. So that feeds into what we do from a generative AI perspective. I think these two will really big pillars going forward in the next 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Sampath.
I think my 2 picks, in addition to what we've spoken about, is I think clearly value is absolutely critical. How banks can transfer value back, and I think that's a key DNA for VO Bank is that across the board we're trying to figure out how we can always give value back to our customers, whether it's through savings, rewards, wealth management. So whatever we're building, both on the SME side as well as on the retail side, the focus is always on the customer and what's best for the customer in terms of how we can add value there. The other, I think, key would be obviously the whole cyber security part, right? So with all the frauds and challenges that are coming across the board, I think it's very important for every bank and I think all organizations to focus and ensure that the customer is well taken care of on that front. So, ensuring that we offer a very secure environment to bank on all financial services, I think that's going to be another key focus area for us.
Very interesting. Thank you, Prateek. Ali?
You're leaving it to the fintech to be the most innovative and
You have to be, better be.
Look, I think in my perspective, the 2 big ones are definitely one, getting better at the whole financial wellness piece of the puzzle. And I'd like to illustrate that with a simple example. All the banks that we know have certain offers on credit cards, right? But if I'm sitting at a restaurant, I'm not going to get a notification saying, hey, you have X% off at wherever it is you're sitting. So that financial wellness piece, be it on the savings, be it on the rewards, as Prateek was talking about, I think needs to be a bit more seamless. But then the second piece, I think, is the sustainability piece, right? I think that is also equally critical because sustainability is driving real impact within the world globally, and there are a plethora of daily people who are very interested in the topic. So how is a bank going down that whole sustainability piece of the puzzle? What are the investment recommendations they're making? How are they leveraging their own internal processes to be more sustainable? I think those 2, in addition to everything that my co-panelists have said, are 2 key themes.
Thank you, Ali. Financial wellness, and I remember your comment about every other guy having a Ferrari, so that goes well with you being consistent. I'm going to quickly open up to the audience to ask questions to the panelists, but I'm just summarizing what I just heard from all of you. If somebody has to pick what would be the focus areas for banks in the next, 3 to 5 years, clearly the comment about knowing who you are serving, be it at the top or at the bottom, and being aware of offering something to the community. And that also goes back to the comment Prateek made about adding value back to your customers, and that obviously goes very well. Thank you, Sampath. I think you emphasized on the topic of the day, which is AI, and that being the mantra for most banks to be focusing on. And obviously AI is as good as your data, so data becoming a critical focus area. And how good is your data if it is going to be stolen? So cyber security is very critical. I think that's another focus area which is of importance. But I guess Ali's point about being seamless from a financial wellness standpoint and sustainability. No panel is complete without making a reference to being sustainable. So thank you for bringing that up, Ali. I'm happy to take questions from the audience, and If somebody can pass the mic, first question there.
Ram, if you don't mind, I would like to go first. I always wanted to ask a question to a conventional banker sandwiched between two digital banks. So, look, the cost per transaction is, some of the studies say 20% of what a conventional bank costs, right? With this slide, I don't know what the cost of transaction is for you, but it will be significantly higher than the digital-only banks. How do you see, let's say 5 years from now, how do you see you competing against digital-only banks?
So I don't think we'll be competing against digital-only banks because we'll continue to become a large bank. So you will, to have that overheads will still be there. But what we are looking at is how do we find efficiencies in what we are doing? Okay, how do you bring down that cost? I think we are not comparing with how much is going to cost a digital bank to service a customer because they're completely two different parameters that we look at. I think internally from our perspective, we definitely look at how do we bring in efficiencies, how do we bring down the cost because there's always a cost pressure all the time. So they are achieved in a couple of ways. One is basically, as I talked about, STP. So the number of services that you do end-to-end STP, it automatically brings down because there is no manual intervention there. And second, from an internal operational efficiency perspective, even if you want to handle exceptions, what sort of workflow capabilities that we have, how quick is that workflow capabilities. So these are certain process re-engineering becomes part of the entire digital journey, right? You don't just look only from a technology aspect perspective. You also look at the other areas of improvement that we bring in. So I think, bringing in tools for handling exceptions and also, automating end-to-end the process. This is where I said generative AI is also going to play a big role because some of those exceptions or some of those certain typical type of transactions can be handled and efficiency can be brought in through generative AI also. Yeah, so this automatically, a byproduct of this will be the cost per transaction will come down.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, this is Fazil from Vision Bank and ADGM. Just a quick question to digital banking with a conventional bank kind of view as a digital bank. We all understand that retail banking is at a good maturity when it comes to digital banking, but an important topic we didn't touch upon is corporate banking, where digital onboarding has a lot of challenges. So your suggestions on that or your views on that?
I mean, from our perspective, we are doing a huge amount of revamp of our corporate channels. A lot of work is going on to unify all the capabilities that we offer to corporate customers, bringing a common layer for them to transact with either from cash or trade or different sort of capabilities. So there's quite a bit of revamp going on to give a very new experience to the corporate customers. From an onboarding perspective, yes, it's not as easy as a retail onboarding. So work is in progress. We are looking at how can we make it also end-to-end seamless. We are coming up with a very state-of-the-art STP commercial banking capability very soon. So that's looking at completely like a retail customer. How do we enable a commercial customer end-to-end having a very digital journey? Yes, quite a bit of work is going on there also.
From our side, we built the capabilities to onboard any organization. It is regardless of the complexity of the organization. So from a sole prop to a multi-layered conglomerate, we can today onboard these organizations all digitally, so there's no paper involved. So at least we've managed to achieve that over the last 2 years. We've also enabled payment mandates that can be done digitally. So again, it's paperless. Once the customer's onboarded, they can enable whatever payment mandates they have, whatever layers of approvals, all that can be built in. We've also enabled a digital end-to-end supply chain finance solution. While it doesn't cater to all scenarios of SCF, it does cater to the biggest opportunities that exist in the market. We have a digital anchor onboarding, we have a digital supplier onboarding, and a completely end-to-end instant disbursement of loans as well. So we're slowly building products in a digital way that can cater to the corporate segment as well. Like Sampath said, obviously these products are a little more complex. So as and when we can either collaborate with other fintechs to extend these services or build them on our own, but over time we will try to cater to all segments of the business.
Thank you, Prateek. Well, if there are no other questions, then we'll call it a wrap. But I have to say that this was setting the tone for the rest of the day. And very wonderful, insightful discussion. I'm sure all of us in the audience would appreciate that these are insights that it's not only for the day today, but for all of us in what we're going to do in the next few years. Yeah. So thank you again, dear panelists.
Thank you so much.